G'day everyone, my name's Dallas. I'm one of the enrollment advisors here at Coder Academy. We're just going to kick off with a presentation really soon to have a bit of a chat about what we've got in store for our coding boot camps. We're just going to hold off just for a moment and let a few more people roll on in, and then we will get amongst it. Hope everyone has had a glorious day today. Feel free to show in the chat where you are tuning in from. Fantastic, Patty. Cheers. Melbourne? Sydney? Coolio. Awesome. Look, let's go ahead and get stuck into it. Once again, my name's Dallas. I'm one of the enrollment advisors here at Coder Academy. And today we're going to have a bit of a chat about our coding boot camps, what we've got in store coming up in September and October, and also a little bit of a presentation from Alex, one of our lead educators. But let's sort of move on through here. So where coders are made. So look, in the spirit of reconciliation, Coder Academy acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. Who are we? So once again, that's myself, Dallas, and Lee as well. We're the enrollment advisors here at Coder Academy. I will bring Lee on for some light housekeeping.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening and sharing your evening with us. We would love it if you would give us all of your very most burning questions in the live chat. So the chat box is the one that is labeled chat. Please don't type in the Q&A. We want our questions in the chat. And when you have a look at the bottom of the box where it says who can see your messages, it says to, can you make it say everyone, not hosts and panelists? This will just ensure that we don't double up on any questions. Yeah, and look, there are no questions that are too small, too silly, too big, whatever. Just put all of them in there. We aim to get all of them answered within the session. If we find that we run out of time and we aren't able to do so, then we will send you answers to any unanswered questions tomorrow, okay? Looking forward to what you've got to ask about. And so excited for you to see Alex's mini lesson. Okay, I will be in the live chat. And yeah, take it away, Dallas.
Cheers. Thank you so much for that, Lee. Awesome. Rightio. So this is Alex. We'll bring Alex on. Give us a wave and say hello, Alex. Cheers for that.
Hello.
Cool. So Alex is one of our lead educators. He's been with us for a long time, and he's a really talented guy. And he's going to give us a bit of a chat about some JavaScript a little bit later. But first, we're going to roll through a couple of things just to give you guys some more information on our coding boot camps coming up in September and October. So look, we'll start off with this. Who employs full stack developers? The short answer is everyone, but essentially you've got IT companies. Obviously, that makes sense. There's a lot of development roles out there. Upon completion of a bootcamp with us, you will be considered a junior full stack web developer. Okay, proficient in front end development and back end development. You'll be able to build complex websites, databases, web-based applications, all of these cool things. Okay, and the IT industry, obviously, they're all going to be hiring a lot of devs. Look, you got retail as well. I like to talk about COVID specifically because it was a very obvious time. A lot of shops had to close their doors. Everyone went into lockdown. And, who were, the people who actually created all of those online platforms, those online portfolios for these shops to be able to still sell their goods through websites, but full stack developers. Okay. So a lot of full stack developers are technically working in the retail space. You don't need to be in the tech industry to be a developer. But obviously there's just a lot of devs in there too. You got financial institutes. So like fintech is a really big one. We all use banking apps on a day-to-day basis. Okay. You've got full stack developers and mobile app developers. They're the ones that are actually sort of behind the scenes and making these apps function. And then you got digital agencies. So it's a pretty broad one, the digital agency one, but you got people that are maybe in partial tech roles, maybe people in marketing that are doing a lot of work with databases and a little bit of code here and there. But honestly, coding is everywhere these days. So there's plenty of opportunities available. Now, the average salary for a full stack dev is $120,000. So that's going to be someone who's been in the industry for a couple of years. It honestly does not take you very long in the industry as a developer to hit a six-figure salary. Things move pretty quickly. As someone fresh out of a boot camp, a junior full stack dev, you're looking at something between, say, 70 and 80 $1,000 a year, which isn't too bad for, say, 10 months of study. So it's a really good it's a really good boot camp to do if you're looking to change career. Now, who's the bootcamp ideal for? What a great segue. So career changes, upskillers, and it's a great alternative to uni. So like I said, it's a really good opportunity for people to change career. Not everyone wants to go and do a 3-year degree or maybe even go back to uni because they've already done a degree, but they had 10 years in an industry and decided they want to move on. So a boot camp with us, 10 months is a really good opportunity where you can upskill to the point of being able to break into the industry as a junior dev. And like I said, $70,000 to $80,000 a year. It's nothing to screw your nose up at as far as like an entry level job. It's pretty good. Upskillers, we actually have a lot of people who are already in the tech industry come through our doors. Some of them are, say, software developers that have sort of been, working in the same stack for a really long time, and they need to sort of like upskill into newer stacks, something that's a bit more relevant to, give them, I guess, a foot up further into the industry. Some of them, you'll find that there'll be people that aren't on the tools, so to speak. So you'll have people in the tech industry that actually aren't on the coding side of things. And they'll actually want to like transition into coding. So they'll come on board for our boot camps and then, just upskill and sort of like move into other better paying positions at the current jobs. And then alternative to uni, you've got people that are fresh out of high school. They're looking to find out what they're going to study next. Okay. A lot of them might be looking at degrees because, that's what our parents were sort of shoving down our throat. But ultimately, a 3-year degree isn't necessary these days. There's a lot of boot camps out there for a lot of different things. And you can come on board with us, 10 months. You can learn so much. There's actually so much involved in our boot camps and walk out the door and get yourself a job in the tech industry. Also, in saying that, what you can do is after the boot camp, if you really want to, because our boot camps are actually accredited, you get a higher education diploma of web development. You can actually move on to uni afterwards and get credit for what you completed with us because it's university level subject. So if you wanted to, study uni, if you wanted to, sorry, go to uni afterwards, that's totally an opportunity that's available to you. But ultimately, most of our grads move directly into the industry as developers and they don't look back. So look, here's a bit of the nitty gritty. So the intake dates, we've got 2 intakes that are open for application right now. The September one coming up really soon, and then the October one. So 2nd of September and 14th of October, both 10-month boot camps, and they both have the 4-week optional industry placement. We'll touch on that a bit more soon. The delivery is 100% virtual. So we have live classes, which is just there, the timetable. We'll talk a bit more about the timetable in just a moment. And then you've also got facilitated self-study. So outside of those live classes that you need to attend, you've got about 13 to 20 hours of self-study that needs to be completed as well. Now, the support hubs, we have support hubs available in Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne. That's where our campuses are. But in saying that, we have a lot of Discord support as well. And so you don't actually ever need to step foot on a campus if you don't want. But we do have support hubs available for face-to-face. You could also tee up I guess, face-to-face support via Zoom, that sort of thing. That's available to you. But there's plenty of support available through educators and peers alike on our Discord servers. So once again, qualification is a higher education diploma of IT, and the price there is just over $22,000 in total. Now, it's payable in monthly installments. That's available to you as well. Or because we're accredited, you can actually get a fee help government loan to defer payment if you're an Australian citizen or a New Zealand special category visa holder. So here, it's just a bit of a sort of a nicer breakdown there of the live classes. So it says there Monday and Wednesday or Tuesday and Thursday. What that means is the September intake coming up, which is going to be the first one. That's actually going to be Tuesday and Thursday, 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. Okay. And Saturday, 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. So these live classes, they fall outside of business hours. So a lot of people ask whether they can actually complete this boot camp with a full-time job, working a 9 to 5. Okay. It can be. It can. We do have people in the boot camp right now that are studying with us and working full-time jobs. It just comes down to time management. You're not going to have a lot of time to do a lot of stuff outside of working and studying with us for that 10-month period. But if you've got good time management, it's definitely doable. People are doing it right now. So that's September intake. That's the Tuesday and Thursday, and then the October intake, which is after that, is going to be Monday classes and Wednesday classes. So that's Monday and Wednesday 7 p.m. Till 9 p.m. and Saturday 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Cool. So and then there's the 13 to 20 hours. I've just written 20 hours there, just to give you sort of the max, but it's 13 to 20 hours. Well, in saying that the max is pretty much whatever you want. What'll happen is you'll get sort of bogged down in something that you've learned, and then you'll go off and create a whole bunch of projects by yourself, and you'll end up spending 50 hours a week. But on the boot camp itself, 13 to 20 hours is sort of our recommended study, and that could be fit in wherever you want. So here's another sort of better visual guide for you. You can see there the green ones, and this is for the September intake. You've got 7 till 9, 7 till 9, and then 9 a.m. to 1:30. And then that light yellow area, that's where academic support's available. So academic support is available to you from 9 a.m. To 5 p.m. Monday to Saturday online. So on Discord. Sunday is the only day that you don't have support available to you. But yeah, that's where you can reach out to us. So a bit of a breakdown here. So term one is going to cover HTML, CSS. You're going to be building a portfolio website, doing some Python programming. You'll be building a terminal application, and you'll also be touching on Python with Flask, and then the beginning of JavaScript. Now, if all this stuff's going over your head, it's not a problem at all. We teach everything from the ground up. So no prior knowledge is needed to come on board for a boot camp. Just really a passion to learn. We definitely recommend playing with some free online coding modules to get a bit of a taste, though, to make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. But ultimately, we'll teach you everything you need to know from the ground up. So term two there, JavaScript continued. Move on to deployment, some full stack, doing a full stack application in Flask, and then touching on React, which is a framework for JavaScript. Then you'll be building a full stack web application for a real client. Now that one is that's a really big assessment that you'll be doing in small groups. And then you've got DevOps fundamentals and also AWS Cloud Practitioner Docker. And then we'll move on to the optional industry placement. So you get placed with one of our industry partners and complete a 4-week placement program. Basically, in order to be eligible for the industry placement, you need to have a first-time pass rate on your assessments, and you need to have a sort of a credit average. And then other than that, you pretty much just need to be able to turn up to your live classes. That's really important, and be able to sort of conduct yourself in an interview situation. So be able to talk to people, and that's pretty much what we ask of you. And the industry placement's a really great opportunity to be a part of our partnerships team. We'll start, talking to you closer to the end of the boot camp, gathering things from you like your web-based portfolio, links to your socials, links to your GitHub, bits and pieces to basically prepare you as best they can for industry. These are a couple of companies that that our grads are working at now, and also a few of these companies are ones that our students might even place with. There's a few big ones there that you'll notice, and then you might find that the others are sort of like medium-sized and smaller companies. Some of them you might know of, and some of them you might not. It's basically there to showcase that our industry partners, they're large, medium, and small. So we try to tailor our industry placement to whatever the student is really chasing. Not everyone wants to work for a startup and wear many hats. Some people want to be a bit of a fly on the wall in a bigger company and just sort of like, get in there and do what they need to do and sort of just assess the situation. It's a little bit more of a chill environment, so to speak. But yeah, we've got a little bit of something for everyone. And then we've got a diversity in tech scholarship there. So it's one scholarship up for grabs per intake, and it's 50% off the course fees, and it's open to domestic students. More information can be found on the website. Applications will close for the September intake, which is the next one coming up, on the 18th of August. So if you are keen for that one, definitely check it out. And then the 2nd of September for the October intake as well. So you get a little bit of time there. And the application process is very simple. You go ahead and apply on the website or via one of the links in one of our emails I've sent through. And then you go ahead and complete enrollment, and then you begin the course. It's really, really simple. Even if you're looking to go for one of the fee help government loans, all of that application process is tied in with our application process. We make it as easy as possible for you to go ahead and apply and complete enrollment. Cool. Go ahead and bring Alex on. And
Hello, hello.
hey, I'll leave these wonderful people with you, Alex.
All right, awesome. Thanks for that, Dallas. I'm going to start sharing my screen. The idea with tonight is that we want this to be a little bit of a way for you to see how we teach and how we run in the classrooms. So just give me 1 second while I bring back the Zoom windows that I need. Essentially, I like to have chat and participants open while I'm sharing, and I've got a whole bunch of monitors across the space to make sure I can see everyone. It's, just a nice way to keep everyone involved and help everyone be aware of each other. But essentially for tonight, what we want to do is learn a little bit about JavaScript. Now, as you saw in the slides, JavaScript is a term 2 topic. It's a little bit further into the bootcamp. So for tonight, we'll be looking at a project that's already got some code, but we want to see how we can add JavaScript to it. And this is because with the way the internet works, JavaScript is the thing that makes websites interactive. So you learn about HTML and CSS in term 1. You can create a website, you can style a website, you can make it really pretty, you can deploy it. But to make it really interactive, that requires JavaScript. So it's a little bit more on top of that. So what I've got is a GitHub repository. And if you're not sure about what that is, that's okay. That's something that we show in the course as well. But essentially, a GitHub repository is where your projects are stored. So you can see this is the JavaScript demo for August 2024. I have a bunch of files in here, and I can open them up on my computer, which is super nice and simple because it just says, all right, these files are here. And then once we've got the project in from Git, then we can open it in Visual Studio Code. So we do all of our coding in Visual Studio Code. That's essentially a nice open source editor. It costs nothing. It's really great. Web development is one of those industries that's really good because a lot of the tools, or essentially all the tools, are free. So like for me, as a bit of an intro to me, because I know I haven't talked about much about my background, but I came from game development, and the software needed to make video games costs money, at least once you start getting successful, and that's not really that great. So going into web development, where there's no cost to do this stuff, it's like, yes, we can create things, we can build so much, we can do all this really cool stuff. So on the screen here, I have a project. It's just a HTML file. This is essentially the structure of a web page. It's like the skeleton. So these elements that we see on the left here, they're basically setting up what the page is. You can see we could change the title of it. So it could be like some super cool website and save it. That particular title was metadata for the browser, so that would be in the tab, but we could change what the body is showing as well. So there's a bunch of sections of things that we can edit here. That's just, stock standard HTML. So instead of Alex, it could be Dallas's super cool website. And you can see on the right, I've got a little live preview of the website. So it'll update with whatever changes we make. So this skeleton, this is made already. We don't have to worry about the HTML that's going on here. We won't edit anything that's on this particular file, because what we can do is we can just create JavaScript and add that JavaScript to this file. So we've got like the page title, we've got a button, we've got a heading for the output to put later. We've got another heading for the Pokemon section because we want to find some Pokemon and make things fun there. We have an input field, another button to do things, and another output area. So this structure, this is really good for us because it means that like we can just say, all right, this stuff exists. Now we can make code that does things with that structure. With what we'll do, I'll zoom in a little bit just in case, but we want to make a new piece of source code. And there's a bit of a convention in code where we have an SRC folder, which is short for source. Anything that we are making as developers is source code. So we'll be creating a new JavaScript file and we could call this one diceroller.js as an extension because it's JavaScript. So JS is JavaScript. And we can start putting things into there. Now, I know we do have the whole Q&A thing that Lee and Dallas are on top of, but one of the other things I like to do when I'm teaching is, because I've got the chat open, I can see the questions as they come in. So Claudia asking how the classes are organized. Is it lecture-based or workshops? It's exactly what you see here. I don't know if that falls more into like lecture category or workshop category, but essentially we'll be going through things live together. You'll have a whole bunch of online content through Ed and Canvas that you can go through in your own time. But what we do in these live sessions here is we will walk through something as a class and try and build stuff together. So you can go and learn about topics, but then you can get more context about that stuff in these live sessions and create more things. But essentially make your learning more bespoke this way. And one of the cool things I like to do with my classes is that, like, we can run polls in Zoom, we can check who's done what. So we can say, all right, if everyone's gone through the self-study, we can go off script in the live sessions. So we can start making crazy stuff, whatever you want to see, we can just do that in the live session. So I think that might be more like a workshop, but otherwise, yes, it has lecture components to it as well. Either way, really cool stuff there. Patty's question, I'll leave that for Lee and Dallas because I do want to keep on coding, but it's a very good question there, Patty. I'll let the others get that for you though. So what we want to do with our dice rolling code, we just want to make a little thing that says, all right, if we press the button, we get a random number. Thinking of like rolling a dice, it could be a 6-sided dice, it could be a 20-sided dice if you like tabletop games. But either way, we can make code that just gives us a random number and then make more code that puts that random number on the screen. So what we should do there is really just plan this out. So we can say, all right, we need to make a dice roll, get a number, and then we should have another plan, and that will be get dice roll result and put it on screen. So these are just comments. These are just little notes for ourselves, essentially, where we can start planning things out. So we can make a function for get dice result and display it. We can make another function for roll the dice, and we could even, well, let's make a function that's just as is for now. But essentially, these functions are just groups of code because we've got a couple of steps where we can just roll the dice and then roll the dice and display it. Eventually, if the website grows, maybe we want more places where we can roll the dice. Maybe we'll have other pages and all these other different things that we could do on it. So having functions means that we can reduce the clutter, essentially. We can keep things dry, which is do not repeat yourself. So if we have functions, we just reduce the duplicated code and keep things nice and tidy. So with this, we can actually say, all right, we want the dice result to equal a function output or an output from the function called roll dice. Obviously, we haven't built up the actual logic to make that happen yet, but you can kind of see like, all right, we need to call this function and then do more things to display that. So before we do too much more about displaying things, let's actually get a number so we can, have something to work with. Part of the thing that makes JavaScript so important is that it can do whatever logic you need on the web page. So we just need a random number. That's all we really want. We could say let results equals math.floor. So a bunch of math stuff that's all built into the code. It's super convenient. We want to get the result rounded down. So math.floor rounds down to the bottom of a math.random call times, let's say 6 for a 6-sided dice, and then +1. Now, this is a little bit convoluted, and this is a little bit of a JavaScript thing here, but essentially, we'll go round down of random number between 0 and 1, multiplied by 6 plus 1. So it's a few steps to get the random number that we want. And this is because in computers, the random number that we get in this particular function here, that is built into JavaScript, it is a decimal number between 0 and 1. So we kind of have to bump it up a bit. And because it could be 0, we have to add 1 to it because dice don't really have zeros on them. At least not most dice that I normally use. So we get our little result. And then we just want to say, all right, we'll return the result. So this function has done its logic and it can return an output for other functions to use. So again, this is coming back to the idea of all of our functions. We can have little dry blocks of code, which will be do not repeat yourself. We can just say, all right, we call this function and that's it. Like we just get the result. We don't have to rewrite all this logic every single time. So we have the function to roll a dice. Let's get, actually, no, let's do a console.log of the dice result in our get dice result and display it function. A log here is a really cool thing that we'll try and show in a little bit as well. But essentially, this is like creating a little, yeah, it's a log. It's like a travel log, little journal entry about what the code's been doing. So we can see a result from that output there. Essentially, if we don't specifically say for the computer to do something, it won't do it. So if we want to see the result, we need to write code to display it on the screen, which was all that HTML stuff that we're about to do, or we need to log it somewhere. So console.log, that's going to put that number there as well. Really nice and simple, but it's a really developer-facing thing. So if you're making a website and you want like customers to see it, they won't see console.log because it's for developers. So it's a good little milestone for us, as in like we can check the outputs of that. So we have our little number result there. In our code, because we've got the number, the next thing that we want to do is find this little element that we've got in our code as well. So in the HTML, in the skeleton, we have this little space here that we can put numbers. So the dice roll output, this is just a heading. It has no content yet, but it does have an ID. The reason that it needs an ID is because your JavaScript, you can design your JavaScript separately from your HTML, but you've got to tell your JavaScript what to find. You can create a bunch of different labels, and there are a couple of different systems in HTML to identify content. But an ID is really good because only one thing is meant to have that ID. So if we tell our JavaScript to search for something with an ID of dice roll output, it's going to find this H1 and it'll fill out the content there. So let's do that. In our code, we'll say the dice roll output element. Maybe we'll just say dice roll output. Variable names are kind of just whatever you want, as long as you understand what that thing is. So maybe we should say element, because we know that it's that particular element from the page. But we want to say that this is something from the document, and we can get the element by the ID of dice roll output. And every single time I type for something that's like an ID, I feel like I always forget it right away. So I'm just going to double check. We have dice roll output in the JavaScript and dice roll output in the HTML. So that should match. It should find the right thing. And then it's really nice and simple because we just say, all right, the dice roll output element has some text, and that text is now going to say the result of the dice roll. So we are using our code to update and replace things on the page. This is essentially how a lot of websites operate just in general. So the HTML loads, and then the JavaScript runs, and then maybe you have some more user actions to run on the page, which then updates the page again. This is a really cool thing because in the modern internet, it means that your websites that you visit and websites that you develop can do a whole bunch of stuff without leaving the page. If you think, for example, of, I guess, any social media network, even things like YouTube or Gmail, they all run on this concept of your HTML loads, and then your JavaScript does something that updates the HTML. So this general thing that we've got going on here, as basic as it may or may not be, that's kind of the fundamentals of the internet. Like it just updates content on the page. So what we have to do now, we've got this code, but we've got to tell the HTML page to load the code. Because right now they are completely separate files. There's no connection between them. So we have to go back to our HTML, and this is probably one of 2 edits that we need to do in this particular file. But essentially, with HTML and JavaScript, they run from top to bottom. So line 1, 2, 3, 4, like it just goes down through the file. So it's going to load up the data about the page. it's going to load up the content to display. And then once it's got content to display, we can bring in our script tag, and we can say, all right, we want this script tag to come from diceroller.js. Excuse me. So we can say, all right, this page now has this content. There is one thing I forgot to do as well, but essentially we can say, all right, this content exists, it's on the page. We have the file connected, it's loaded in the browser, but there is one thing that I've just briefly forgot there. We need to tell it when to actually run these functions. So thinking of the page that we've got, can anyone see what the user should do to run this function based on the HTML page that's on the right? I'm happy to see this question's going in the chat. Awesome. Thanks to Alison Lee for getting those. But the question was, what should a user do? Yeah, there we go. Michael's got it. And we want to roll the dice. So there is a button on the page that just says roll a dice. We need users to click on it. Because right now, like the button exists, it is clickable because buttons are clickable. But we have to tell the button what to do when it's clicked. So we can load up all these structures, but we have to tell the structures how to behave or tell the page what to do. So in the JavaScript, after we have created our functions, we can just say that we want to find the dice roll button, and we want to find that on the page. It had an ID, and the ID is dice roll button, so we can just copy and paste that ID. And then when this button is clicked, we want to run the function. So we can tell the button to listen for an event that happens on the page. And we say, not lick, we want click. When someone clicks on the button, we want to run get dice results and display it. So this element is going to listen for an event, and that event will be a click. And when the button is clicked, it's going to run this particular function. So now I can click the button and we get different numbers every time. We get a couple of 6s, a couple of 1s, but I think that's pretty cool. So we actually have JavaScript running on the page. It is updating the content. There is no refreshing needed. Like once the page is here, the JavaScript is running, which means the button can do things. And yeah, time for some D&D. Now, that's a really great segue for the next thing we need to edit here, because right now we've got a dice rolling function that runs a maximum of 6 sides on the dice. What we could do though, like this is a roll dice function. It's not a roll a 6-sided dice function. We could make a separate one for that, sure, but roll dice, it's like the name of it is generic. So this function, the logic should be generic. That means for us, we can say, all right, instead of a 6, we'll just say dice size. Dice size has to be a piece of data that's given to this function. So in the top of the function, we can say dice size, and maybe we'll say 6 is the default. If no one provides any value, it's just going to roll a d6. But if we roll and we say, all right, roll dice now has a value of 20 given to it, it means that dice size is going to be 20, and we are going to use the number 20 in our dice roll logic, which means we can roll and we can get 11s, 13s, 16s. Oh, come on, we never get 20s. Oh, there we go. Yay. For those who play Dungeons and Dragons, I don't know if you guys do DMing for Dungeons and Dragons, but I DM for my campaign, and I swear there's like a DM's curse where I can rarely get a natural 20 when I need it. For those who don't play, that's a critical hit for a lot of damage, which means I don't do very well with damage in my games because I just don't roll those numbers. But hey, that's cool. We know that we can get it. So the logic is there, the randomness is there, the page can do these things. And because it's random, it'll be different for every user that presses the button. So if we ever deployed this website, people could visit the site and they could all roll a different number because it's all running on their own browser through their own code that they've loaded from visiting that website. So we've made a nice little function there for rolling dice. I reckon, thinking of the time here as well, it's 6:35. I reckon we can do a little bit of Pokemon stuff. It might require me to speed up a little bit, but in the chat, how are we feeling with this stuff that I've shown so far? Do you want me to speed up, slow down, stay at the same pace? What are we thinking? Dallas loving it. Thank you, thank you. Lee loving it as well. And Patty, awesome. Thank you. All right, so what we'll do, I reckon we'll try and do one Pokemon related function. Essentially, when I teach this topic in the classes, like in the bootcamp, we end up creating a whole big Pokemon encounter website. Like, it's so cool because we can spend hours on this stuff. But what we'll do tonight, we'll just make it really simple. Search for a Pokemon, find a Pokemon, show some basic data, and that'll be it. So we'll do a similar thing because we've done the dice rolling. That logic exists. We don't have to do anything more with that. But we'll do a similar thing as far as making a new file and putting new logic inside of there. So we'll say Pokemon finder.js. Keeping in mind, like our files, they should try and be a little bit organized. So the dice rolling does not contain Pokemon code. The Pokemon finder does not contain dice rolling code. We keep things a little bit organized and separate that way. So what we'll do is we'll create a search function. And this is a little bit of a advanced topic if we were to dig into it, but asynchronous functions are a way for your code to do things that take time. And this is because in the internet, one of the key things that websites can do is they can retrieve data from other places. And this is really important because it means that, you know, if you're logging into Facebook, there'll be a bunch of pictures, posts, videos, whatever. That data has to live somewhere. So an asynchronous function is a function that'll take time because it might just take time to find that data. And that means for us, we can say a search result is going to be something that we have to wait for, but we can fetch data from a particular API. It's a really cool API too. There is an actual thing for Pokemon data. It's so nice. But we'll just make that word wrap so I can type some more. We want to say that we add the Pokemon name onto this thing that we are visiting. So this result here would be essentially if we said Pikachu at the end of the URL. So we are attaching a variable, so a piece of data, onto this URL that we are hard coding into the app. And we are saying, all right, we can visit this URL and we'll see a bunch of data there. This is really important because this data does live on another website and we can see it's a lot of data. It's so good. We can do so much because there's so much to work with. It's so nice. So we don't need to worry about all the data, but we just want to grab a name. So let's say search result data equals, we are waiting for the search result to come in and convert into JSON. And then we can return search result data dot name, just as the little piece of data that we want. Because the Pokemon API, it has a lot of things in it, but we can just keep it simple and focus on the name. And then similar to our dice rolling code, we've got the data, like we've done the logic, now we just need to display it. So we can make another function, search and display Pokemon name. Just realizing it is probably a little bit silly to have it search and display just the name when we were entering a Pokemon name. So maybe we'll turn this into one of the images. Because I use this a lot in my classes, I do have that part memorized there. So we're finding one of the sprites that's in the database for that Pokemon, which is really cool because it means we can make a page that shows a picture. And that picture is coming from somewhere. So we want to essentially grab the input from the page. So we are finding elements by ID again. So we are finding this little text box that's on the screen here. We can type in whatever, and that data will come through into our code. Because yes, our JavaScript can do things, but it's also a lot more engaging for a website to receive something from a user. So you can enter your username and password, you can upload a photo, you can search for Pokemon. That's just a thing that you can do because the JavaScript stuff on a website is so awesome. So we want to get our search results, and we'll just say search result image. and we are going to wait for the search for Pokemon function to run with Pokemon search input.value. Essentially, we are saying, all right, find the text box and grab the value of that text box. So whatever text is in there, that's going to be the value that we use. And then I reckon we could do a nice little bit of rendering. Let the Pokemon display area equals another thing where we find an element on the page. We want to, what was the element ID for this one? Pokemon search output. So we'll search for that particular element. And we can say, all right, we'll do let Pokemon image equals a document dot create element of an image. If this sounds like a whole bunch of crazy stuff, that's okay, because again, this is a term 2 topic essentially. But what we're doing with our code is we are retrieving data, we are finding elements on the page, and then we're creating more elements on the page as well to attach into the existing page. This is the same sort of logic and system that you would see on things like Facebook and Twitter, where when you make a post, the post gets added to the page because it's added not just to the data in the Twitter databases, but it's actually on the page where it wasn't before. So it's that whole same logic there. We're just doing that in our code as well. The Pokemon image dot source should be the search result image. And we want to grab the display area and append the image to that display area. So this means that our code can let us search for a Pokemon, retrieve its image, and then add that image to the screen. So with that, we'll do 1 or 2 more lines of code in here. We want to do the Pokemon search button. Similar thing to what we had in the dice roller, right? We need to tell the button what to do when we click on it. So we need to get the element by ID of the search button. And we need to say the Pokemon search button has to listen for events. And when it's clicked, we want to run the search and display Pokemon function. So when we click on the button, we'll run the Pokemon searching. So one last thing to make that work is that we have to tell our HTML to load this particular file as well. But we can now say, all right, we've got dice rolling and Pokemon searching. Let's hope that this actually works. Let's search for a Squirtle. Hey, it works. First try. Oh, I'm so glad. So we can search for whatever we want as well. We can search for Mew. In the chat, if you've got any other ideas for Pokemon, feel free to put them in there as well. But essentially, we can just keep on creating content on the page based on the input that the users provided. So we've done kind of the fundamental thing that the internet relies on to make this website. Dallas saying Vulpix. There we go. So I know this is a nice brief little crash into the lessons that we do here, but this is yeah, essentially just the foundations of how the internet works as far as what JavaScript can do. Because we can interact with the page, we can do things that requires user input. Let's say we search for another one, and we can update content on the page based on what the user is doing. This is, yeah, it's such a foundational, fundamental thing for how the internet works that there are a lot of things you can do that build on this same skill in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different languages, in a lot of different technologies and tech stacks. But yeah, in the bootcamp, we look at these as like learning JavaScript first and then learning JavaScript frameworks such as React on top of this to show more professional ways of doing this and how to do this in larger scale applications as well. Because yes, as cool as it is to roll dice and search for Pokemon, there's a lot more data out there to work with and a lot more different things that you could build depending on your app ideas and so on. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. So it is 6:44. I might stop there, but I'll stop the screen share and we'll pass back to Dallas, I believe it is.
Cheers. Awesome. Too easy. Thank you so much, Alex. That was amazing. A lot of really cool information to be learnt about JavaScript and just coding in general. It's just really good to see, VS Code in action, and it can be really complex, but you made it seem so simple. So that's really good, especially with a term two subject.
Thanks, Dallas.
No worries. Lee, I'm just gonna get you to come back on screen as well. I think we did actually answer most of the questions that did pop up as we went. I do have a question here that I wanted to ask Alex as well. So I noticed that you wrote the JavaScript in a separate page and called upon it in the index with an ID. Can you write all the code in one page? Can you do that? Is that a thing that can be done?
It is a thing that can be done. It's not really recommended
Hmm.
because essentially, as you build larger applications, like if you work in teams or if you work on like larger apps that have lots of users, if it's all in one file, it does become harder to work with.
Sure.
Essentially, the process with things like Git that I showed at the start very briefly, it works best if work is kept organized in separate files. But if you're just working on your own and making a little hobby project, you can absolutely just put it all in one place. It just will be a little bit messier and trickier to scale up as your project grows.
Yeah, cool. It's not recommended, but yeah,
Not
good to
recommended.
know. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Sweet. Cool. So we got a question from Kate here. So do we need a special type of computer for this course? Um, yeah, look, Alex, what do you need? What are the specs?
I mean, you don't need anything special in particular. The newer the newer the better. But I think the oldest computer I've seen in the course has been like probably approaching 10 years old. I don't remember which student had that, but it's a lot easier to do some of this stuff if you're at least working on like a modern operating system, so Windows 11, Mac. You can even work on Linux if you want to, if you're feeling brave enough for that. But the hardware is not really a big deal. I can see Lee's put the specs in the chat as well. 16 gigabytes of RAM should be like the standard for anyone doing anything. But beyond that, like no need for a fancy graphics card. You don't have to fork out thousands of dollars for a gaming computer. You can just stick to a cheap laptop. I think at the moment in the support hubs as well, like I work in the Sydney support hub for Mondays and Fridays. I'm just using a really cheap little notebook at the moment that's like 16 gigabytes of RAM, no graphics card, and a really basic CPU. I forget the exact one, but it's like it is the cheapest, weakest piece of hardware that I've got, and it's like it can do all this stuff perfectly fine. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Cool, awesome. That's really good to know. Yeah, so I think we recommend 2020 or newer. And I guess the one thing you don't want to do is you can find a lot of
Is that my internet or Dallas's?
I think Dallas is gone. I think what Dallas was about to say is the thing that you don't want to do is change from one system, one machine to another, essentially, right before you take a boot camp. Just to finish his thought there, I'm pretty sure that's what he was going to say. Like, if you're used to using an Apple computer, then don't like change to PC right before you take the boot camp, and vice versa. Would you like agree with that, Alex?
100%, yes. One of the
Yeah,
cool
stick with
things
what
that we've
you're.
got, yeah, sorry, I'll just add like with the bootcamp
Yeah,
that we've got, um, a lot of the web development and IT industry in general focus on Unix systems. And I know that phrase might mean nothing right now, but essentially, um, a lot of the operating systems, regardless of what the system they are, they have ways to make that work. So you won't miss anything regardless of what operating system you choose. You won't, either way, you won't miss anything. Just stick to the operating system that you're comfortable with, 100%.
and as you instruct people like throughout the course, your kind of instruction would be though for those on a PC, this is what we need to do. For those on a
Yes,
Mac, like you kind of do both, right? Yeah. So
exactly.
everyone's included. We're all happy. All good. Cool. Look, a few other questions that we kind of pretty routinely get asked about the boot camp is like we do often get asked about the level of academic support that's available. So yeah, what would you say to that? Like we're just always getting asked, like, how will I be supported in this really intense course? Yeah.
Yeah, it's I think probably Dallas might have described it best on the slides, but essentially we've got like the live sessions for our live classes. We've got the support hubs that are both face to face and online. Essentially, there's a lot of like we try to provide as many options as we can because we know that everyone learns differently and has different support needs and support styles. So we try and provide that variety to make sure that if you need something helped in a certain way, we can do that for you.
Yeah,
So trying to
cool.
think of like specifics. If there's things that you need specifically, please reach out to us, especially with student services. We can arrange anything like, yeah, we can give anything a shot if we don't already do something that would work for you, essentially.
Oh, Alex, would you like to answer Hong's question there? Do we have anything
Yes,
like assignments?
we do. We do. We've essentially like we've got assignments to help you get practice building projects. And that's probably the one big thing that a lot of the students talk about is that like we want to make sure that people have a chance to put these skills into practice. So it's not just us speaking at you, but it's actually you getting a chance to learn these things and build something with that. So the assignments that you'll have in the bootcamp, they're all with the intention of things that you can use in your portfolio, things that would help you with your job hunting, things that you can carry on through and help yourself grow with that. So there's no like, really arcane academic abstract stuff that's like, oh, do this exam that's closed book and completely insane. It's like, no, we don't do that here. You can build stuff, keep it relevant, and build up your skills through that.
That's very cool. It's like, yeah, basically we try to get our assessments to I guess align with like sort of like how projects would work in the industry so that it's an easier transition when you graduate and move into the industry itself.
Exactly.
Cool, cool. Sorry
Yeah,
about
thanks.
that. My internet decided that it saw that I misspelt Vulpix earlier and it was just like, no, that's enough internet for you.
Oh, sorry, were you gone? No, just kidding. We were like, oh, is that us or him? Yeah. We still experience technical difficulties, don't we? Anyway,
Oh,
it happens. Yeah, so another one, Alex, like I guess one thing for all of you who've come to join us tonight, like I think it's important to note that while the boot camp is assuming that you are a beginner level at the beginning, it does ramp up very quickly and it is very intense. And it is really important that you have enough time in your week to actually take it on. Considering what I've just said, Alex, like what kind of advice would you give to someone starting a boot camp, like as to how they can best succeed throughout the course?
I think time management's probably the big one. Essentially, the one thing that we keep on seeing with a lot of the assignments, like the projects that people have, they'll look back and go, "Oh, I wish I did like the wireframes sooner rather than leaving that to the last minute," or like maybe this project was so much better because I did the planning, I put the time to make that more organized for myself. That sort of stuff, like in the various ways that being organized will prop up for you in the course, trying to at least plan things out and follow through with those plans, that's probably the biggest, best thing you can do. Because we've got all these resources, we've got all these bits of content you can go through. It's really just a matter of making sure you can put time into that and making sure you've got time organized for that.
cool.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Patty is asking an interesting question. That's really good. Are there resources through the school to find out what specific dev roles or skills are in demand? The one thing that I can certainly tell you, Patty, is that we are very much on the pulse of what's needed in industry, which is one of the reasons why our course has very recently changed in the second term, where we're now teaching, containerization and using Docker, because we knew through our industry partners that there was a gap where this knowledge was concerned. So we do definitely know these things. As far as job postings and such, that I'm not sure of. Do you know, Dallas?
Yeah, look, we don't, I mean, the partnerships team has a really good idea. You could definitely talk to them. They're always in the know about, I guess, what is sort of trending and what sort of roles are, coming up and what people should be upskilling into. So they'll definitely be able to talk more about that sort of stuff with you in the boot camp. But what I will say is, you might have noticed that we only deliver one boot camp variety, and that is full stack web development. And we do that because it is one of the most sought after development roles in the industry. And as a full stack developer, you're almost a little bit of a jack of all trades. You're a lot more employable because you can work on front end and back end. So yeah, there's a reason why we teach that specifically. So there's always plenty of roles available for full stack devs.
I'll just add to that too, like, because the idea of full stack being a bit of everything, like, that is the key, right? So if you do think like, oh, maybe front end's really great or back end's really great and I'm not so great at this other thing, you can take this as a stepping stone to those other areas and specialize further. Like, your learning should not stop just because you finished the course. You've got to keep on learning and growing through the industry, and through any internships and workplaces that you join. Like, you keep on growing and growing into different paths depending on what you want. So we just provide that big, varied starting point for you to build off of.
It's
And
so true.
jumping into different languages constantly, right? Like, you'll learn one and then another one will come out and everyone will be like, oh, we don't use that one anymore because blah, 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 blah. And then you're learning something new, but it becomes easier to do that because you have the foundation from the boot camp to build on. Is that right? Would you say that that's...
Exactly.
I think I'm also speak to a lot of people who say they want to come on board for a bootcamp with us, and they primarily want to focus on front end development. I think because they think front end development is easier, and also sometimes I think it might be a little bit difficult for people to sort of visualize what back end development really is, and so they don't quite understand it. But there is so many sort of grads that have come out, and I've spoken to afterwards, and they've come in, with the intention of focusing heavily on front end development so they can come out the other end as a front end developer and then break into the industry. And they've come out the other end as back end developers. Like, they're like, oh, you know what? I started learning back end, absolutely loved it. And now I'm way more into back end than I am front end. So it's really interesting. What I find is students will come through the door and you'll find that, you'll change your mind on what you want to do after the boot camp 3 or 4 times. You'll find out that there are roles in the industry that you didn't even realize existed. There's just so much to it.
Cool. Any further questions from our attendees this evening? We have a few more minutes, but yeah, like, feel free to pop anything you'd like to know into the chat here. Otherwise, if you're feeling a bit maybe tired or hungry because it's getting, close to dinner time, feel free to give us a call because we do like to chat with you. It is, it's very enjoyable for us to chat with you guys and hear about your personal circumstances around coming to learn coding. I will again stick our details into the live chat for you if you would like to call us. We love it when you call us. It really does make us happy. Just in case you didn't already know, Dallas is actually joining us from Brisbane tonight, which is why there's Queensland written next to his name. I join you from Sydney and so does Alex. So yes, we are actually kind of a remote team in ourselves. Was there anything else that we needed to cover this evening?
I think that's pretty good. Look, I'll just basically wrap up by saying thank you so much to Alex for coming here and showing us some JavaScript. It was really good. And also, guys, the September and October intakes are open for application right now. So if you've learned everything you need to know and you're ready to rock and roll, absolutely go ahead and apply on the website. And that's really about it. Cool. It's been
very cool.
Yeah, it's been beautiful. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.